Good morning to you. Our conversation with Mark Kohlenberg is brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. We've been talking about the economy, and we were talking about inflation in our last half hour. Let's sort of keep it going in that arena, at least, as we talk about the possibility of recession and how companies prepare for it. And maybe we can ask Mark if it's okay for individuals to follow the same philosophy. Mark, good morning.
Good morning, Todd. How are you?
Wonderful. It's good to have you with us here today. Mark is the founder of Moral Code, and in 2017, also the founding partner and CEO of WDM Footwear and Accessories. Mark, what's that all about?
We have a couple of D2C brands. Moral Code is one. Milwaukee Boot Company is another. And then we also design, develop, and produce private label footwear and accessories for lots of other brands in the United States.
Which makes this conversation pretty interesting because as somebody who's involved in startup companies and consumer goods, you can give us an idea of how scary it must be to be in that industry right now, because we don't know what this economy is going to do, but it certainly hasn't performed well, has it?
You know, I would say yes and no. There's certainly a lot of volatility out there right now and uncertainty, particularly on the consumer side with, high gas prices and supply chain issues. But at the end of the day, every season people want to freshen their wardrobe. You get tired of wearing, the same pair of shoes or the same outfit, and especially with back to school in a couple of months, I think people want to continue to, refresh and feel good about themselves and what they're wearing.
Yeah, and I guess when you get right down to it, there's the idea that nothing lasts forever, so you're going to have to at some point, and you might as well get something that looks good.
Exactly.
So how does, in your case, shoe manufacturing, whatever the product is that a company is producing, how does the idea that the recession is coming and things are really going to tail off, how does the company prepare for something like that? What do you do?
Well, I think, certainly in the apparel and fashion world, we're always preparing for the inevitable. There's always manufacturing issues. Frankly, there's always supply chain issues and costing pressures, regardless of, what happens to be on in the news in any given day. So this is not necessarily new to the fashion world, but, you start working further in advance. You start trimming your collections. Instead of offering, a dozen choices of colors, you may cut it by 2/3. You try to control more of your destiny by limiting the variables that are out there.
And the materials cost, in this case, I would assume there's a lot of leather and rubber as well, and everything that goes into putting together footwear. Materials cost, is that as controllable as we might like it to be?
No, not at all. Wish it was. There's constant volatility in material costs. And, we do use a ton of leather. Majority of our products are made with leather, whether they're, footwear or accessories. And leather, honestly, is a byproduct of the meat market. And, when consumption goes down and there's less supply out there, leather prices go up, and at times just the opposite, and leather prices can go down. So it's a very volatile market that's to a degree outside of our control, because it has to do with meat consumption, and we're using the waste from that product, and it really has very little to do, with making shoes.
That's interesting because that might not be something that we had considered in the past. What about getting a rubber? Because rubber has to be a part of what you do too.
Yeah, we certainly use natural rubber for the sneakers that we produce. A little more controllable in cost. Obviously, it's only produced in certain areas of the world, but we haven't seen that many issues with it. I think, with rubber and canvas, and there's so many different components and raw materials that go into footwear from a variety of suppliers all over the world. It's really, it's like a very careful choreography, putting it all together and keeping your fingers crossed that it arrives on time, it arrives with no quality issues, and then ultimately you can produce the finished product, meaning footwear, with everything. But if there's one little blip from any one of those things, it really can throw everything into a tailspin.
So that being the case, and then you throw in manpower, which has been a problem across all of industry. It's a pretty tricky business in which to be, and I was trying to make a connection between what you do as a company producing goods and preparing for a recession, and what individual families can do across their economic platform, if you will. It's not the same, obviously, but there have to be some commonalities there, don't there?
Oh, totally, yes. It really comes down to not being reactionary. Be proactive. Bank your savings. Be careful in those purchases. Buy less but buy higher quality. Buy the basics. It really, this isn't rocket science. It's fairly commonsensical. But those same issues that you use as a consumer, we certainly use on the manufacturing side.
It's kind of interesting. When I was growing up, of course, most of the parents had been children in the Depression years, and their families, their parents had passed down to them the idea of frugality. And always planning for the worst, and doing whatever. Nothing should be wasted. Everything should be used. And that mindset may have slipped away as we got to more prosperous times. But you sense a return to that, don't you?
Of course, yeah. And we even see it, we're making shoes now really leaning more into sustainability by using leather scraps that typically would end up on the cutting room floor and end up in a landfill. So, trying to do more with less, and, just never leaving anything on the table that can be valued.
And you want your product to maintain its quality, and that's where the people element comes in, isn't it?
It is. Shoemaking, I don't care if you're buying a $10 pair of shoes at Walmart or a $500 pair of shoes at Nordstrom. All shoes are made by hand. There's no magic machine in a factory. It's a very laborious process that takes trained people that really care about their craft, and it shows in the finished product.
Gosh, I thought Cobbler's Elves made shoes.
Not anymore.
Well, all of that being the case, for families who are dealing with the economic realities of today, just as for companies, there are things we can do to prepare, and you talked about it. Just some hallmark things that we can do, foundational things within our families to protect our finances, and look for those better times, and that's really what we need to do. We're thinking survival for the most part right now, right?
Yeah, this isn't going to persist forever. But when you see filling up your tank is costing you twice as what it did last summer, obviously you need to cut costs and be more careful in other aspects of your life, and control what's controllable. Many people have the ability to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Mark, I need a 12D.
We can work on that for you.
You fix me up there, will you?
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Friends and family.
Beautiful. Hey, thanks for joining us this morning. This has been fun. It's been instructive a little bit. Where are we going to learn more about your company?
You really can go to moralcode.com or milwaukeebootcompany.com, and all the products are out there. Yeah.
I was teasing you before that we've never forgiven you for the Super Bowl or for the fact that the Brewers actually exist and you had Ryan Braun. But now you've got Kutch out there, and we're really holding it against the Milwaukee Brewers. What's the day like today in Milwaukee? I understand it's a beautiful city to be in.
It really is. It's a warm day. Tomorrow's first day of summer, but it sure feels like it today. So about 95 and sunny, but feels real good. Beautiful.
Hey, have a lovely day today, won't you?
You too. Thanks so much, Todd.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
There is Mark Kohlenberg.